A bright high school senior in Los Angeles sees her life collapse when her undocumented parents are suddenly detained by ICE. Forced to survive alone, she juggles school, work, and fear of deportation while hiding the truth from her classmates. With the support of a friend and mentor, she finds her voice through activism. Though her parents are deported, she graduates determined to honor their sacrifice and fight for others like her. The alarm buzzed at 6:15 a.m., and Elena Cruz smacked her phone until it stopped vibrating on the nightstand. She stared at the ceiling for a few seconds, replaying in her head the essay she'd been drafting for her journalism class. Her room was small, walls taped with college brochures and posters she'd collected for free at school fairs. A beat-up laptop sat on the desk, stickers peeling off its cover. On the wall was a photo of her family at Venice Beach, one of the few times her parents had taken a whole day off. "Elena, breakfast!" Her mom's voice floated from the kitchen, tired but steady. Elena dragged herself out of bed, pulling on jeans and a hoodie. In the kitchen, Rosa was still in her work uniform, a pale blue shirt with the name of a hotel embroidered on the chest. She poured Elena coffee the way she always did, 2 spoons of sugar, splash of milk. "You stayed up late again, Mia." Rosa looked at her with worry hidden behind her smile. "Just finishing the essay. If I can win that scholarship, UCLA might actually be possible." Her father, Miguel, stepped in from the back door, smelling faintly of grass clippings and gasoline. He'd been up since dawn, heading to his landscaping job. He placed a calloused hand on her shoulder. "Scholarships, hard work, all that will pay off. You'll go farther than us," he said, pride glowing in his eyes. Elena smiled, trying not to think about how her parents often reminded her of what they had sacrificed. They never talked about papers, citizenship, or borders, just work, school, and the future. At school, life was noisy and fast. Elena juggled honors classes, school newspaper meetings, and college applications. Her best friend Jordan was waiting by her locker, sipping iced coffee. "You look like you didn't sleep," Jordan teased. "Scholarship grind," Elena muttered, shoving books into her bag. "Girl, you're gonna kill yourself before midterms. Take a breath." But Elena didn't know how to take a breath. Every hour counted. Every grade, every line of her essays. She wanted her parents' sacrifices to mean something. That evening, she sat at the dinner table while her mom reheated leftovers and her dad fixed the broken chair leg. The Cruz household wasn't fancy, but it was steady, filled with small routines and laughter. Until the next morning. Elena came home from school to silence. The TV was off, the kitchen half empty. Her parents' jackets were missing from their hooks by the door. On the table sat her mother's untouched mug of coffee, a thin film of cold cream floating on top. She called out, "Mom? Dad?" No answer. Her neighbor, Mrs. Hernandez, appeared at the door, face pale. "Elena, they took them. Immigration. ICE came to the hotel and the job site. I'm so sorry, Mia." The words hit Elena like a punch in the chest. She stood frozen, the room spinning. In a single day, everything she knew, the fragile sense of safety her family built, collapsed. Elena barely slept that night. She lay awake in her bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars she'd stuck to the ceiling years ago, back when life felt safe. The house was too quiet. Every creak in the walls sounded like footsteps. Every car pulling up outside made her heart leap with fear. By morning, her phone had a voicemail from her father, short and rushed. "Elena, listen. Don't be scared. We're at the detention center in downtown. Call your tia Carmen, she'll check on you. Stay strong, mija." The message ended with static. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, gripping her phone until her knuckles turned white. Stay strong. How? She forced herself to get ready for school, pulling on the same hoodie from yesterday. Her reflection in the mirror startled her, eyes swollen from crying, hair sticking out at odd angles. She didn't want anyone to know. Not yet. At school, the halls were buzzing about prom, about who was dating who, about college acceptance letters. Elena moved through the noise like a ghost. Jordan caught up to her by the vending machines. "Hey, you good? You didn't text back last night." "Yeah, just homework. I'm fine." Her voice cracked on the last word. Jordan gave her a look but didn't push. By third period, she could barely focus. Words on the whiteboard blurred together. When her teacher asked her to read a passage aloud, her throat tightened. She stumbled through the lines and sank into her seat, cheeks burning. At lunch, she sat outside under the shade of a palm tree, scrolling through her phone. She Googled Detention Center Los Angeles visit rules. Her chest ached reading the words, "Visitation limited, must present government-issued ID." She didn't have one. That afternoon, she took the bus across town to her aunt's small apartment. Tia Carmen, her mother's sister, lived with 3 cousins crammed into a 2-bedroom. "Mia, you can stay here a little while," Carmen said, hugging her tightly. "But you know my landlord. He doesn't want more people. We'll figure something out." The cousins stared at Elena from the couch, wide-eyed, as if she were suddenly an orphan. That night, Elena lay on a thin mattress in the corner of the living room, listening to the sounds of the freeway outside. She felt both surrounded and completely alone. The next few weeks blurred into a brutal routine. School by day, part-time work by night. She lied about her age to get a dishwashing job at a taqueria, scrubbing pans until her hands cracked. She sent cash to her aunt for rent and tucked away a little for commissary deposits so her parents could buy soap and snacks inside detention. At school, she plastered on a smile. She turned in essays, raised her hand in class, pretended to care about prom. When Jordan asked again if something was wrong, she said, "Just stressed." But her grades slipped. She nodded off in class, too exhausted from late-night shifts. One afternoon, her journalism teacher, Mr. Alvarez, called her after class. "Elena, I've read your work since freshman year. You're one of the best writers I've had, but lately, your spark is gone. What's happening?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him everything, but fear gripped her. What if he reported her? What if people found out? "I'm just tired," she muttered. He studied her, then softened. "Sometimes writing helps when talking feels impossible, even if no one reads it but you." That night, she opened her laptop and began typing. Words poured out like floodwater. The raid, the empty house, the sound of her mother's mug clinking on the table, the fear that she was next. She didn't stop until 3 in the morning. The next Saturday, Elena scraped together enough courage to visit her parents in detention. She stood in a cold, sterile waiting room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, clutching her temporary visitor badge. When the guard led her in, her chest nearly broke at the sight of her parents behind glass, wearing beige uniforms. "Mi niña," Rosa whispered into the phone, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mom, I'm okay," Elena lied, pressing her hand to the glass. "I'm working. I'm keeping up with school." Miguel leaned close, his face tight with worry. "Promise me you won't stop studying, Elena. Promise." "I promise," she said, even though she was barely holding it together. The guard tapped his watch. Time was up. As she was led out, Elena turned back, memorizing the way her parents looked, as if committing them to memory in case she never saw them again outside those walls. Back at school, she started sneaking into the library computer lab after hours. She created an anonymous blog and posted her story under the name, "A Student Without a Country." The posts were raw, describing what it felt like to live in fear, to have your family ripped apart overnight. She didn't expect anyone to read them. But within a week, the posts spread through social media. A local immigrant rights group left a comment. "Your voice matters. Join us." Elena stared at the message, heart pounding. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself. Hope. Her double life grew heavier. At school, she smiled and pretended to care about finals. At night, she washed dishes and blogged. On Sundays, she visited her parents. The weight of adulthood pressed down on her shoulders, but inside it, a new strength began to grow. Elena hadn't meant for her blog to spread. But by the end of the month, classmates were whispering. A post she'd written about hiding in the bathroom at school, crying between periods, was quoted in someone's Instagram story. At lunch, she overheard 2 girls at the next table. "You think it's her? The blog girl? Nah? Elena? She's too put together. She looks tired all the time, though." Elena's stomach dropped. She shoved her sandwich back into its bag and walked away, face burning. That night, she deleted the app from her phone, but the blog lived on. New comments popped up, encouragement, solidarity, and some ugliness too. "Go back to where you came from. Not our problem." She almost shut it down completely, but then an email arrived. "We're hosting a youth rally this weekend in MacArthur Park. We'd love for you to come. Even if you just listen. You're not alone." Elena read the message 3 times. Her hands shook. Not alone. At school the next day, Jordan finally cornered her outside chemistry. "Okay, something's up. You're not sleeping, you're skipping lunch, and I know you're lying to me." Elena's chest tightened. "I can't. Try me." They sat on the steps behind the gym, away from everyone. For the first time, she told him about ICE, the detention, the blog. Every word felt like ripping off a bandage. Jordan didn't flinch, he just listened. When she finished, her cheeks wet with tears, he pulled her into a hug. "You've been carrying this by yourself? Elena, that's insane. I didn't want anyone to know." "Well, now I do. And I'm not going anywhere. Got it?" Something in her chest loosened, just a little. On Saturday, Jordan went with her to the rally. The park was filled with signs and chants, drums beating in rhythm with the crowd. Elena felt out of place at first, surrounded by people older, braver, louder. But then she saw a girl her age take the microphone, her voice shaking but steady. "My mom was deported last year," the girl said, "but I'm still here. We're still here, and we're not giving up." The crowd roared in support. Elena's eyes blurred with tears. For the first time since the raid, she didn't feel invisible. A woman from the organizing group approached her afterward. "You should share your story too," she said. "People need to hear voices like yours." Elena's instinct was to say no, but the words stuck in her throat. Back at school, rumors grew louder. Someone printed out her blog posts and taped them to lockers. Some kids whispered words of support. Others muttered insults when she passed. In journalism class, Mr. Alvarez asked her to stay after again. "I know," he said gently. Elena froze. "Know what?" "I know the blog is yours." He gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I'm not here to expose you. I just want you to know what you're doing takes courage." Her eyes stung. "It doesn't feel like courage. It feels like I'm falling apart." "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Elena. It's riding through it anyway." She wiped her cheeks, embarrassed. "What if it doesn't matter? What if nothing changes?" He leaned back in his chair. "It matters to the people who read it and realize they're not alone. Sometimes that's enough to start something bigger." His words stuck with her. The following week, the activists invited her to speak at a city hall protest. Elena spent nights drafting what to say, scratching lines into her notebook and tearing them out again. Jordan sat beside her on the floor of her aunt's cramped living room. "You don't have to be perfect," he told her. "Just honest." Her hands trembled as she folded the paper. Honest. That she could do. The day of the protest, she stood on the steps of City Hall, microphone shaking in her hand. The crowd stretched down the street, faces looking up at her. "My name is Elena," she began, voice cracking. "I'm 17. I was born in Mexico, but I've lived here in Los Angeles almost my whole life. A few months ago, ICE came and took my parents. They've worked every day of their lives to give me a chance at college, at a future. And now they're locked in a detention center, treated like criminals." She swallowed hard, tears blurring her vision. "I'm scared every day that I'll lose them. But I'm here because I know I'm not the only one. There are thousands of families like mine, and we deserve to be heard." For a moment, the world went silent. Then the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Elena's knees nearly gave out, but a rush of something else filled her. Relief, pride, strength. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting. The next day, her face appeared on local news coverage of the rally. At school, some teachers gave her quiet nods of respect. Others looked at her with pity. And some students weren't kind. Walking down the hall, she heard someone mutter, "Illegal." Another whispered, "Why doesn't she just go back?" The words burned, but she kept walking. She had spoken. She couldn't take it back. And deep down, she didn't want to. At night, she visited her parents again, telling them about the rally. "You're so brave, mija," Rosa said through the glass. "But be careful. Speaking out can bring attention." "I know," Elena whispered, "but I can't stay quiet anymore." Miguel nodded, his eyes shining. "You've already done more than we could have dreamed. Whatever happens to us, you must keep going." Elena pressed her hand to the glass. "I will." Back home, she sat at her laptop, writing late into the night. This time, she didn't post anonymously. She signed her full name. For the first time in weeks, she slept deeply. By spring, Elena was no longer invisible. She wasn't just the girl in honors English or Jordan's best friend. She was Elena Cruz, the 17-year-old who stood on the steps of City Hall and told the world that her family had been torn apart. The recognition was strange. Sometimes it felt empowering. Teachers telling her they admired her courage, classmates slipping her quiet notes of support. Other times, it was suffocating. Strangers sent her angry messages online. A boy in math class sneered, "Enjoy college." "Oh wait, you can't." She tried to let the words slide off, but they stuck. One afternoon, she sat in Mr. Alvarez's classroom, flipping through her notebook. "The court date's coming," she told him quietly. "What if I can't do anything? What if they deport them?" He leaned forward. "You can't control the system. It's broken. But you can control how you fight, how you show up for them. That matters." His words gave her something to hold on to. The immigrant rights group invited her to speak again, this time at a candlelight vigil outside the detention center. Jordan came with her, holding a candle in one hand and a sign in the other. Together, they listened to parents, children, neighbors share their stories through tears. When it was Elena's turn, she stepped forward, her voice steadier than before. "My parents are inside this building right now. They are not criminals. They are workers, parents, people who love their community, and yet they are treated like they don't belong. But we belong here. We always have." The crowd lifted their candles higher. Chants filled the air. "Keep families together. Keep families together." Elena felt the sound vibrate through her chest. She wasn't alone. Still, reality pressed in. Bills stacked on the kitchen counter at her aunt's. Her dishwashing job barely covered rent. She skipped prom because she couldn't afford the dress or the ticket. When classmates posted glittering photos online, Elena scrolled past them with a hollow ache in her stomach. But when the ache grew too strong, she wrote. Her blog posts became bolder, more personal. She wrote about standing in line at the detention center, about hearing her mother cry on the phone, about missing her father's laughter in the mornings. She didn't write as a victim, but as someone refusing to be silenced. The posts caught the attention of a local journalist who asked to interview her. Elena hesitated. More attention meant more risk. But then she remembered her father's words, "Keep going," so she said yes. The article ran with her photo and headline, "Teenage Voice Rises in Fight Against Deportations." The next day, her phone buzzed non-stop. Supporters sent encouragement. Trolls sent threats. "Block the hate," Jordan advised. "They're just scared of the truth." But late at night, scrolling through the messages alone, Elena's stomach knotted. Was she making things worse for her parents? Weeks later, the court date arrived. Elena sat on a wooden bench in the immigration courtroom, her hands clenched in her lap. Her parents, dressed in plain clothes instead of detention uniforms, sat with their attorney. They looked older, thinner, but when they caught Elena's eye, they smiled bravely. The judge read through documents in a flat voice. The lawyer argued that Rosa and Miguel had lived here peacefully for 20 years, raised a daughter, contributed to the community. But the government attorney shook his head. They are here unlawfully. That is the simple fact. Elena's chest tightened as the words droned on. She wanted to scream that her parents weren't facts on paper. They were people. They were her. Finally, the judge spoke. The court orders removal. The Cruz family petition is denied. Elena's breath caught. Her mother sobbed. Her father closed his eyes. "No," Elena whispered. "Please no." But it was done. That night back at her aunt's, Elena curled into herself on the mattress. She had fought, she had spoken, she had written until her fingers cramped. And still, she had lost. Jordan sat beside her, quiet, his hand resting on hers. "You did everything you could," he said. "It wasn't enough. Maybe not for them to stay, but for others? For the people who heard you, who found courage because of you? That's not nothing, Elena. That's power." She didn't answer, but deep inside his words planted something. The next morning, she opened her laptop. Her parents' deportation was now inevitable. But her story wasn't over. She typed until the sun rose, words flowing like fire. She wrote about watching her parents in court, about the injustice of a system that tore families apart, about the choice she now faced, despair or defiance. She chose defiance. The day her parents were deported, Los Angeles felt too bright. The sun beat down on the pavement outside the detention center as Elena watched through the chain-link fence. Rosa and Miguel were loaded into a white van with blacked-out windows. Her mother pressed her palm to the glass as the vehicle pulled away. Elena raised her own hand, tears streaking her face. The van turned the corner and disappeared. And just like that, they were gone. The weeks that followed were a blur. Her aunt tried to comfort her, but nothing filled the hollow space in her chest. Elena called her parents every chance she got. The connection crackled, their voices small and distant, but they tried to sound strong for her. Study hard. Her father reminded her each time. Eat, rest, don't forget yourself, her mother added. But at night, when the house went quiet, Elena lay awake staring at the ceiling. The silence pressed down on her like a weight. Graduation came in June. Elena almost didn't go. What was the point of walking across a stage when the people who sacrificed everything for her couldn't be there? But Jordan insisted. They'd want you to. They'd be furious if you skipped. So she put on the cap and gown, the gold tassel swinging against her cheek. As the line of students shuffled forward, her hands trembled. She clutched her phone inside her gown pocket. The video call connected to her parents across the border. When her name was called, Elena Cruz, valedictorian, she walked across the stage. The applause sounded far away. She glanced down at her phone. On the tiny screen, her parents were smiling through tears. After receiving her diploma, she stepped up to the microphone for her speech. I stand here today proud of my classmates, proud of everything we've accomplished. But I can't pretend my journey here was easy. A few months ago, my parents were taken from me. They worked every day of their lives to give me this chance, and yet our system decided they didn't belong. But here's the truth. They do belong. Families like mine belong. People who dream, who work, who love this country as much as anyone else. We belong. My parents aren't here today in person, but they are with me. Their sacrifices are in every page of my notebooks, in every late night I stayed awake studying, in every step I take forward from here. And I promise, for them, for myself, for all of us, I won't stop fighting. The gymnasium fell silent. Then the applause came, louder than she expected, echoing through the rafters. That night, after the ceremony, she stood outside under the streetlights with Jordan. Her phone buzzed with a video call from her parents. She answered, showing them her diploma, holding it up to the screen. Rosa sobbed. Miguel's voice cracked. We are so proud, mija. I did it for you, Elena whispered. Everything for you. Her parents smiled, their faces pixelated but radiant. When the call ended, Elena slipped the phone back into her pocket and looked up at the stars. The ache in her chest was still there, sharp and heavy. But beneath it, something else stirred, strength. She wasn't just a girl who had lost her parents to deportation. She was a daughter, a student, a writer, and now a fighter. And her story was only beginning. Thanks for listening. Hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe.